I still remember the exact shade of red his face turned when the cabin door swung open. There we were, me and David, her husband, standing in the doorway of my mountain retreat, champagne in hand, watching as my husband Michael scrambled to cover himself with the throw blanket I'd hand-knitted for our 5th anniversary. Behind him, partially hidden, was Vanessa, his colleague, my supposed friend, and David's wife, her eyes wide with panic, mascara smeared across her cheeks. "Surprise," I said, with a smile that felt foreign on my face. My voice didn't even shake. Sometimes I surprise myself with how calm I can be when my world is burning down around me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. 3 months earlier, I was the picture of blissful ignorance. Michael and I had been married for 12 years, college sweethearts who'd built a life together that looked perfect from the outside. I ran my interior design business from home while he climbed the corporate ladder at his investment firm. We had our beautiful cabin in the Berkshires that we'd purchased 6 years ago, my dream project that I'd poured my heart into renovating. It was our sanctuary, our escape from city life. We'd met David and Vanessa at a charity gala 2 years ago. They seemed like the perfect couple to befriend, both successful, charming, with the same love for hiking and weekend getaways. We started doing dinners, then weekends together. Vanessa and I would spend hours discussing design projects while Michael and David talked investments and fly fishing. It felt like one of those rare adult friendships where everyone genuinely connected. I remember sitting across from Vanessa at brunch, watching her laugh at something Michael said, thinking how lucky I was to have found another couple we both enjoyed, how naive I was. The first sign came in the form of a text message. Michael's phone chimed while he was in the shower, and I glanced over. Not snooping, just an automatic response. The preview showed, "Can't wait for our next escape. I'm still feeling you." The sender was labeled V-Work Project. I put the phone down, heart suddenly racing. Just a colleague being inappropriate, I told myself. I didn't mention it. I didn't want to be that wife. Then came the late nights at the office. The weekend, emergency meetings. The sudden interest in going to our cabin alone to clear his head and work on the Johnson proposal. Always the Johnson proposal. I started finding receipts for dinners for 2 on nights he supposedly ate at his desk. Charges for premium champagne when Michael only drinks scotch. I'm not stupid. But there's knowing, and then there's knowing. You understand? I needed proof before I could confront the collapse of my marriage. The confirmation came when I stopped by his office unexpectedly one Wednesday afternoon. I'd been nearby meeting a client and thought I'd surprise him with coffee. The receptionist gave me a strange look. "Michael? He's not in today. Took a personal day." A personal day. While I thought he was sitting in budgeting meetings, he'd taken a personal day. I thanked her and walked out, my coffee cup still warm in my hands. I tracked his phone that night. Not my proudest moment, but desperate times. The location? Our cabin in the mountains. Our special place. The one I'd spent months perfecting, selecting every chair, every lampshade, every throw pillow to create the perfect retreat. While I slept alone in our bed, he was there with someone else. But who? I wasn't certain until I checked our shared cloud storage, looking through recent cabin photos to see if he'd changed anything. That's when I saw them. Pictures he'd forgotten to delete. Not explicit, thank goodness, but telling enough. A woman's jacket hanging beside his on our custom coat rack. A wine glass with lipstick on the rim. Bright red, not my shade. And then, a selfie of Michael at the lake, and in the background, just visible, was Vanessa, looking out at the water. My fingers went numb. Not some random woman from work. Vanessa, my friend, David's wife. I sat on our bedroom floor for what felt like hours, surrounded by the evidence, trying to decide what to do. Confront him? Throw his things on the lawn? Set the cabin on fire? In movies, wronged wives always seem to know exactly how to respond. In real life, betrayal leaves you frozen, questioning every memory, every moment of your marriage. Then something shifted inside me. A cold clarity washed over the pain. I stood up, dried my tears, and started to plan. This wasn't going to be a typical confrontation. If they wanted to play games, I could play too. and I would win. First, I needed to talk to David. The hardest part was figuring out how to approach David. How do you tell someone their spouse is having an affair with yours? There's no greeting card for that situation. I finally decided on coffee at a cafe far from our usual haunts. Neutral territory. When David walked in, I barely recognized him. In our group settings, he was always the loud one, the life of the party, always ready with a joke or a story. The man who sat across from me looked smaller somehow. His shoulders curved inward as if carrying an invisible weight. "I think we need to talk about Michael and Vanessa," I said after the pleasantries. His eyes met mine, and I saw something I wasn't expecting. Not surprise, but resignation. "You know," I said. Not a question. He nodded, running his finger around the rim of his untouched coffee mug. "For about 3 months now. 3 months. While I was just discovering my marriage was a sham, he'd been living with this knowledge through countless dinners, game nights, and couples brunches. I felt sick. "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked. "Why didn't you?" He countered softly. "Fair point. I just found out," I admitted. "Yesterday." He let out a long breath. "I saw messages on Vanessa's iPad. They've been meeting at your cabin." "Our cabin," I corrected automatically, feeling a stab of fresh betrayal. That was my sanctuary, my creation, my safe place. Michael had taken her there, of all places. David looked up, his eyes suddenly sharp. "Vanessa thinks he's going to leave you, that they're going to start a new life together." I laughed, a harsh sound that startled both of us. "Is that what she thinks? And what about you? Just collateral damage?" "Apparently." His smile was bitter. "I'm emotionally unavailable, too focused on work, not passionate enough. Michael makes her feel alive." Every word was a knife twist. I couldn't help picturing them together in my cabin, in my bed, laughing about their boring, oblivious spouses. "Michael told me last month he wanted to renovate the master bathroom at the cabin," I said quietly. "I spent weeks creating designs, drawing up plans, ordering samples. He kept saying they weren't quite right. Now I know why. She was helping him choose." David reached across the table and took my hand. His palm was warm against my cold fingers. In that moment, something passed between us. A shared pain, yes, but also the first ember of something else. Resolve. "What do you want to do?" he asked. What did I want? I wanted to rewind time. I wanted my marriage back. I wanted to never have met Vanessa with her perfect hair and her bright red lipstick. I wanted to erase the image of my husband and my friend betraying me in the home I'd created. But those weren't options. So I told David about my plan instead. The next few weeks were a masterclass in deception. I played the oblivious wife perfectly. I smiled through dinners with Michael, never letting on that I knew every business trip. Every late night was a lie. I listened to his stories about the office, nodding sympathetically when he complained about his workload, all while a cold fury built inside me. The worst was when Vanessa texted, suggesting we meet for lunch. "It's been too long since we had girl time," she wrote, adding a heart emoji. The audacity. I met her at her favorite restaurant, watching as she gushed about a new dress she'd bought, how David never noticed her anymore, how she was thinking of taking a vacation alone to find herself. All while her phone buzzed with messages I knew were from my husband. "You should go somewhere secluded," I suggested, smiling. "Someplace where you can really disconnect and focus on what you want." "That's exactly what I need," she agreed eagerly. "Just peace and nature." "Like a cabin in the mountains," I added. Just for a second, something flickered in her eyes. Guilt? Fear? But she recovered quickly. "Maybe. I haven't decided yet." I went to the bathroom and threw up everything I'd eaten. Then I fixed my makeup, plastered on a smile, and went back to finish lunch with the woman who was sleeping with my husband. Meanwhile, David and I continued our own secret meetings. We shared information, compared timelines, built our case. We discovered that Michael and Vanessa had a standing monthly weekend at our cabin, the first weekend of every month, when Michael supposedly had his strategic planning retreats, and Vanessa visited her sick aunt in Connecticut. Their next rendezvous was approaching. The first weekend in October, when the mountains would be ablaze with fall colors. Michael had already started laying the groundwork, mentioning casually how he might need to go to the cabin to winterize it before the cold weather set in. "I could come with you," I offered innocently. "Make it a weekend together. It's been so long since we both went up there." No, he said quickly. "You have that client presentation to prepare for. It'll be boring anyway. Just me checking pipes and cleaning gutters." I nodded understandingly. "You're right. You go ahead. I'll focus on work." That night, as he slept beside me, the husband who had shared my bed for 12 years, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering when exactly he had stopped loving me, or if he ever truly had. I thought about the early days of our relationship, how we'd stay up all night talking about our dreams, our future, how he'd held my hand through my father's funeral, how we'd danced in our empty first apartment before the furniture arrived. Had it all been leading to this moment? Was every memory now tainted? The most painful part wasn't even the affair itself. It was the realization that while I had been fully present in our marriage, Michael had been keeping parts of himself separate, creating space for betrayal. I had given him everything: my trust, my youth, my dreams. I had built my life around his, accommodated his career moves, his ambitions. I had believed in us so completely that I never saw the fractures forming beneath the surface. Even now, watching him sleep, I felt that familiar pull, the urge to wake him up, to scream, to demand answers. Why her? Why our cabin? Why wasn't I enough? But I knew those conversations would only give him a chance to lie more, to manipulate the narrative, to make me doubt myself. No, it was better this way. Let him think he'd gotten away with it. Let him believe I was the fool he clearly thought I was. His arrogance would be his downfall. In the darkness of our bedroom, I made a promise to myself. I gave everything to this marriage, and he discarded it like it was nothing. But I would not break. I would not play the victim in his story. This was still my life, and I would reclaim it, piece by piece, starting with our cabin in the mountains. The first frost of October arrived the day before their weekend getaway. I watched from our kitchen window as ice crystals formed delicate patterns on the glass, thinking how appropriate it was. My heart had developed a similar layer of protective ice. David and I finalized our plan over breakfast at a diner 2 towns over. We'd become experts at clandestine meetings, at speaking in code, at maintaining our public personas while privately orchestrating our response to the betrayal. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, watching me stir my coffee for perhaps the 5th minute straight. "We could just confront them directly. File for divorce. Move on." I set my spoon down. "Is that what you want? To just let them walk away, start their new life together, while we're left picking up the pieces?" He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "No, but I'm worried about you, about us, about what happens after." It was a valid concern. What were we doing, really? Planning an elaborate confrontation wouldn't change the fact that our marriages were over. It wouldn't undo the betrayal. But it would give us something neither of us had right now: control, agency, the power to write at least this one chapter of our stories. "I need this, David," I said quietly. "I need to look him in the eye when he realizes I know. I need to be the one who ends things, not the one who gets discarded when he's ready to move on." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Then let's do it right." Our plan was elegant in its simplicity. We knew they would be arriving at the cabin Friday evening. Michael had told me he was leaving directly from work around 3 p.m. to beat the traffic. Vanessa had told David she was visiting her aunt and would be gone until Sunday evening. I had installed security cameras at the cabin the previous year, ostensibly for safety since the property was remote, but really because I loved being able to check on my design work when we weren't there. Michael had clearly forgotten about them. For weeks, I'd watched them arrive together, watched them enter my home, use my kitchen, drink from my glasses. The cameras captured no sound, just silent betrayal in high definition. The key to our plan was timing. We needed to arrive after they were settled, but before anything too intimate happened. I couldn't bear to walk in on that, and I didn't want to put David through it either. We decided on 7 p.m., enough time for them to arrive, unpack, Perhaps open some wine and start dinner. The perfect domestic scene to interrupt. But there were preparations to make first. Evidence to gather. And I had one more card to play that even David didn't know about. While Michael thought I was at a design conference in Boston, I drove up to the cabin 2 days before their planned weekend. I had my own set of keys, of course. It was my name on the deed, after all. Something Michael seemed to have forgotten. The cabin was exactly as I'd left it, yet completely different. Knowing what had happened there changed everything. Every surface seemed contaminated. I walked through each room slowly, touching the furniture, the walls, reacquainting myself with my own property. In the master bedroom, I opened the closet and found what I was looking for. Hidden at the back, behind the spare blankets. A small bag containing Vanessa's things. Toiletries. A robe. A pair of slippers. She had established a presence in my home. Created a space for herself in my life. The presumption of it all made my blood boil. I didn't remove anything. Instead, I added something. A small, discreet recording device under the bed. Not for the bedroom activities. I had no interest in that kind of evidence. But for the conversations that happened in the quiet moments. The plans they made. The things they said about their spouses when they thought no one was listening. Next, I went to the study, where the cabin's security system was controlled. I downloaded all the footage from the past 6 months onto a flash drive. Then I went to the filing cabinet where we kept all the cabin documentation, deed, insurance papers, utility bills. I took photos of everything with my phone, paying special attention to the deed with my name listed as sole owner. When Michael and I had purchased the cabin, we'd decided to put it in my name only for tax purposes since my business sometimes operated at a loss. A clever accounting strategy that would now serve a different purpose. The last thing I did before leaving was set up one more camera, this one aimed at the front door, capturing the perfect angle to record their faces when David and I arrived. I drove back to the city feeling lighter than I had in weeks. I had reclaimed something. Not my marriage, but perhaps a piece of my power. The day of the confrontation, David and I met at a hotel just outside of town. We'd spend the night there afterward, in separate rooms, of course. Neither of us wanted to return to our empty homes after what was sure to be an emotionally draining evening. "I brought something," he said, pulling a bottle of expensive champagne from his bag. "For after." "Appropriate," I noted with a grim smile. "Celebrating the death of 2 marriages. Or the beginning of our freedom," he countered. I liked that framing better. We took my car for the drive up to the mountains, leaving his in the hotel parking lot. The fall colors were at their peak, brilliant reds and oranges painting the landscape in fire. It would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Now it just felt like the world was burning down around us. David was quiet for most of the drive, staring out the window, occasionally checking his phone where he could track Vanessa's location. Technology had made affairs easier to conduct, but also easier to discover. "She's there," he said finally. "Has been for about an hour." I nodded, keeping my eyes on the winding mountain road. "Michael, too. The security app shows 2 people entered at 5:13 p.m. "Are you ready for this?" he asked as we turned onto the private road that led to the cabin. Was I ready to confront my husband and his mistress? To end my marriage on my terms? To stand before the 2 people who had broken my heart and show them I was not destroyed? "I've been ready for weeks," I replied, and realized it was true. The pain was still there, would probably always be there in some form, but alongside it now was something else. Determination. Resolve. A sense that while they had taken my past, they would not determine my future. We parked just out of sight of the cabin. Through the trees, we could see warm light spilling from the windows, smoke rising from the chimney, my fireplace, my wood. "They've made themselves at home," David observed, his voice tight. "Not for long," I promised, reaching for the champagne bottle we'd brought. "It's showtime." As we walked up the path to the front door, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. This was not the end of my story. It was only the beginning of a new chapter. The look on Michael's face when he opened the door was worth every second of pain I'd endured. Complete shock, followed by confusion, then the dawning horror of understanding. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Alexandra," he finally managed. What are you— Surprise inspection, I said brightly, holding up the champagne. Hope we're not interrupting. Behind him, Vanessa appeared in the hallway, wrapped in my favorite throw blanket, the one I'd hand-knitted during our trip to Vermont 3 winters ago. She froze when she saw us, her face draining of color so rapidly I thought she might faint. David, she whispered, clutching the blanket tighter. Hello, darling, David replied with a calm I knew he didn't feel. Lovely evening for a visit to Connecticut, isn't it? How's your aunt? Michael stepped back instinctively as we entered, as if physically retreating from the confrontation. I moved past him, taking in the scene. They'd been cooking. Salmon, by the smell of it. My recipe, probably. 2 wine glasses sat on the coffee table beside a half-empty bottle of red. The fire crackled in the hearth. Such a perfect, intimate setting for betrayal. Don't stop on our account, I said, walking to the kitchen and finding 2 more glasses. We brought champagne. I think a toast is in order, don't you? Alexandra, I can explain. Michael started, finding his voice. Always so confident, my husband. Always believing he could talk his way out of anything. Oh, I'm sure you can, I agreed, popping the champagne cork with a satisfying sound. You're very good at explanations, at stories, at lies. I poured 4 glasses with steady hands. But before you craft another beautiful fiction, I thought we might all have a little reality check. I handed glasses to David and Michael, deliberately not offering one to Vanessa. She could keep clutching her blanket. My blanket. What is this? Michael demanded, finding his footing now, anger replacing shock. Some kind of ambush? Interesting word choice, David commented, sipping his champagne. Given the circumstances. Vanessa finally moved, taking a few hesitant steps toward her husband. David, please, this isn't what it looks like, he finished for her. That's disappointing. I thought you were more creative than that. I sat down on my favorite armchair, crossing my legs, assuming the posture of a hostess entertaining difficult guests. Since we're all here, I thought we might have a discussion about property, specifically this cabin. Michael's brow furrowed. What about it? Well, as the legal owner, I've been wondering about some unusual activities taking place here recently. Legal owner? Vanessa echoed, looking at Michael. The flicker of panic in my husband's eyes was delicious. He'd clearly not shared that particular detail with his mistress. Oh yes, I confirmed, pulling out my phone and showing her the photos of the deed. Sole owner, actually. Michael and I put it in my name only when we purchased it. Tax purposes initially, but now I'm rather grateful for the foresight. That's a technicality, Michael snapped. We bought it together. With my inheritance money, I reminded him. After my father died. Remember that time, Michael? When I was grieving and vulnerable, and you were so supportive? Was that real, I wonder? Or were you just being tactical? He had the decency to look away. I turned to Vanessa, who had sunk onto the sofa, still clutching my blanket. Did he tell you that? That this cabin was purchased with my father's death money? Did he mention that when he was bringing you here, to the place I created to heal from that loss? She shook her head, tears beginning to form. Alexandra, Michael started again, his tone shifting to the conciliatory one he used with difficult clients. This isn't productive. Why don't David and Vanessa give us some privacy to discuss? No, David cut in sharply. I'm not going anywhere. I smiled at him gratefully before turning back to Michael. Besides, we're just getting to the good part, the security footage. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. I picked up the remote control and turned on the large flat-screen TV that hung above the fireplace. With a few clicks, I accessed the cabin's security system and pulled up the stored footage. I installed these cameras last year, I explained, as the screen filled with a crystal-clear image of the cabin's front entrance. For safety, I said at the time. Who would have thought they'd serve a different purpose? On screen, footage began to play. Michael and Vanessa arriving together, month after month, entering and leaving my home, sometimes bringing groceries, once carrying a small gift-wrapped package, a birthday present, I later learned from the audio recording. There's more, I said, changing to another camera view, this one showing the back deck. There they were again, drinking wine under the stars, his arm around her shoulders. You've been spying on me? Michael's voice was tight with anger now. No, I've been watching security footage from my own property, I corrected. Big difference, legally speaking. And these aren't even the interesting ones. I held up the flash drive I'd kept in my pocket. These are from the bedroom cameras. Vanessa made a small, strangled sound. You didn't. I hadn't, actually. There were no bedroom cameras, but they didn't know that. Would you like to see them? I asked pleasantly. I've edited together a highlight reel. Very educational. This is invasion of privacy, Michael sputtered, his face now flushed with anger. Again, my property, I reminded him. But the footage isn't even the best part. I reached into my bag and pulled out my laptop, opening it to reveal an email draft. This is a message to the partners at your firm, Michael. Attached are selected images from the cabin cameras, along with financial records showing you charged client dinners on nights you were actually here with Vanessa. Expense fraud is a serious matter in investment banking, isn't it? His face went from red to ashen in seconds. You wouldn't. I haven't decided yet, I admitted. It depends on how this conversation goes. I turned to Vanessa next. And this one is for the board of the children's charity you chair, Vanessa. The one that prides itself on family values and moral leadership. I wonder how they'd feel about these images. About you using donor-funded business trips to meet your married lover? Vanessa began to cry in earnest now, mascara streaming down her cheeks. Please, Alexandra. My reputation. My work. Your reputation? I repeated incredulously. You're concerned about your reputation while sitting half-naked in my home, having an affair with my husband. That's fascinating prioritization. David moved to stand beside me, a physical reinforcement of our united front. We're not here to destroy you both, he said, his voice steady. Though we certainly could. What do you want? Michael asked, defeat creeping into his tone. Now we were getting somewhere. A clean, swift divorce, I stated. With the following terms, I keep the cabin, obviously, plus the apartment in the city, and half of all our other assets. You admit to adultery in the filing, no irreconcilable differences nonsense, and you both, I looked between Michael and Vanessa, stay completely out of our lives going forward. And my terms are similar, David added. Full custody of our daughter, the house, half of everything else. And Vanessa publicly takes responsibility for the end of our marriage. You want to humiliate us, Vanessa accused, finding her voice. No, I corrected her. We want accountability. There's a difference. Michael paced the room, his mind visibly racing through options, looking for loopholes, for ways to gain advantage. It was what made him excellent at his job, this ability to calculate odds and outcomes in real time. But this was one scenario where he held no cards. And if we refuse? He finally asked. I smiled, a genuine smile that seemed to unnerve him more than anger would have. Then the emails go out. Tonight. And tomorrow, we call our lawyers and begin the messiest, most public divorce proceedings imaginable. Every detail of your affair becomes public record. Every expense report gets audited. Every weekend at this cabin gets documented and time-stamped. I leaned forward. Is that really how you want to start your new life together? Under that kind of scrutiny? The silence that followed was thick with tension. Michael and Vanessa exchanged looks, a silent communication that stabbed at my heart despite everything. They still had that connection, that unspoken language, but now it was being used to navigate their downfall rather than plot their escape. I need to think, Michael finally said. You have until morning, I replied. David and I are staying at the Highland Inn. We'll expect your answer by 9 a.m. You're throwing us out? Vanessa looked panicked. Tonight? It's almost dark and— Yes, we are, David confirmed. Pack your things. All of your things, he added pointedly, looking at the small bag I'd found in the closet. Michael opened his mouth as if to argue, then closed it again. The fight had gone out of him. He knew when he was outmaneuvered. One more thing, I said, standing and walking to the liquor cabinet. I removed a small package that I'd hidden there during my earlier visit. I handed it to Michael. Happy anniversary. His face crumpled as he recognized the gift. Our wedding anniversary was next week, 13 years. The traditional gift was lace. Inside the package was a delicate lace handkerchief I'd had embroidered with our initials months ago, before I knew about the affair. "I guess you won't be needing this after all," I said softly. As Michael and Vanessa gathered their things in defeated silence, I stood on the deck with David, watching the last light fade from the autumn sky. The mountains stretched before us, ablaze with color even in the dusk. "Are you okay?" he asked, his shoulder warm against mine in the chilly evening air. "No," I admitted, "but I will be." Behind us, the cabin door closed. A car engine started. The sound of tires on gravel faded into the distance. And just like that, they were gone. David and I looked at each other in the gathering darkness, champagne glasses still in hand. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. "To taking back what's ours," I replied, touching my glass to his. The crystal rang clear and true in the mountain silence. 1 year later, I stood on that same deck, watching the same mountains blaze with autumn colors. The air had the same crisp quality, the sky that same impossible blue. Yet everything was different. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago. Michael hadn't fought the terms after all. The evidence I'd gathered was too damning, the potential professional consequences too severe. He'd signed everything with a subdued resignation that was, in its way, more satisfying than anger would have been. Vanessa and David's split had been messier. She'd tried to contest the custody arrangement for their daughter, Emma, but the evidence of her extended absences during the affair worked against her. In the end, she'd moved to Chicago to start fresh, leaving behind a trail of broken relationships and damaged reputations. I'd heard through mutual friends that Michael and Vanessa hadn't lasted 3 months after the confrontation. The foundation of deceit that had supported their relationship couldn't sustain the weight of public scrutiny and private resentment. She blamed him for losing custody. He blamed her for costing him his partnership track after the firm quietly demoted him following anonymous tips about expense irregularities. Their grand love story, built in the shadow of betrayal, had crumbled in the harsh light of consequence. As for me, the year had been a journey through grief, rage, acceptance, and finally, rebuilding. I'd thrown myself into my design business, rebranding and expanding. I'd reconnected with old friends I'd neglected during my marriage, rediscovered passions I'd set aside, and I'd spent a lot of time at the cabin. At first, it was painful. Every room held memories I couldn't escape. But gradually, I reclaimed each space. I repainted the bedroom, replaced the furniture, burned that throw blanket in a ceremonial bonfire under a full moon. I exorcised their presence from my sanctuary. The sound of footsteps behind me pulled me from my thoughts. David appeared with 2 mugs of coffee, handing one to me with a smile that still made my heart skip despite everything we'd been through. "Emma's finally asleep," he said, leaning against the railing beside me. The mountain air knocked her out. I smiled, thinking of the 7-year-old girl curled up in the cabin's second bedroom, surrounded by the stuffed animals she insisted on bringing for our weekend trip. "She loves it here." "So do I," David admitted, his eyes meeting mine with the quiet understanding we'd developed over the past year. We hadn't planned this, whatever this was between us. After the confrontation, we'd maintained contact mainly to coordinate the divorce proceedings, to ensure our stories aligned, to present that united front. But somewhere along the way, coffee meetings to discuss legal strategies had evolved into dinners where we talked about everything but our exes, movie nights, hiking trips, a tentative kiss 6 months ago that had surprised us both with its rightness. We weren't living together. We were both too raw, too cautious for that level of commitment. But we were building something honest and real, one careful step at a time. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, noticing my contemplative mood. "Everything. Nothing." I sipped my coffee, letting the warmth spread through me. "How different everything is from this time last year." He nodded, understanding. "Do you regret any of it? How we handled things?" I considered the question carefully. Did I regret the confrontation? The ultimatums? The public nature of the divorce? "No," I said finally. I needed to take back control, to end things on my terms, not theirs. I turned to face him fully. "They were writing us out of our own stories, David. making us the discarded spouses, the obstacles to their happiness. I couldn't accept that ending. So you rewrote it, he said with a small smile. We rewrote it, I corrected him. Both of us. He set his mug down on the railing and took my hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on my palm. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't caught them? If they'd just continued their affair in secret? Sometimes, I admitted. I might still be living in ignorance, planning anniversary trips, renovating bathrooms, never understanding why Michael seemed so distant. Would that have been better? I shook my head firmly. Living a lie isn't living. I'd rather face a painful truth than an easy deception. Inside the cabin, the fire crackled in the hearth. Through the window, I could see the glow of the flames, warm and inviting. Last autumn, this cabin had been the setting for our confrontation, a place of anger and broken trust. Now it was becoming something else, a place of healing, of new beginnings. You know, David said thoughtfully, I keep thinking about the expression on Vanessa's face when we walked in together. I've never seen someone look so utterly shocked. I laughed, the sound echoing across the darkening mountains. Michael looked like he'd seen a ghost. Or two ghosts, specifically. They never imagined we'd figure it out, let alone team up, David said, shaking his head. That was their biggest mistake, underestimating us both. Among many mistakes, I added, leaning my head against his shoulder. We stood in comfortable silence, watching as the first stars appeared in the twilight sky. Inside, Emma slept peacefully, untouched by the drama that had brought us all to this point. She knew only that her daddy had a new friend who made pancakes in funny shapes and taught her how to identify wildflowers on mountain trails. I bought the cabin outright, I said suddenly. The papers came through yesterday. It's officially mine alone. David turned to me, eyebrows raised. That's wonderful. I know how much this place means to you. It means something different now, I replied. It's not just a retreat anymore. It's a reminder that sometimes you have to face the worst moment of your life head-on to find your way to something better. He slipped his arm around my waist. Are we something better? I think we're getting there, I answered honestly. One weekend trip at a time. As the night deepened around us, I thought about the strange, twisting path that had led us here. How betrayal had opened the door to authenticity. How loss had created space for something new to grow. Michael and Vanessa had stolen moments in this place, building their relationship on lies and deception. David and I were building ours in the open, foundational stones of honesty laid one by one, strengthened by shared understanding of pain and recovery. Let's go inside, I suggested, picking up our empty mugs. It's getting cold. Hand in hand, we walked back into the cabin, my cabin, leaving the past outside in the darkness where it belonged. Some might call it poetic justice, but I prefer to think of it as reclamation. We had taken back our stories, our dignity, and this mountain sanctuary. And in doing so, we'd discovered that sometimes the end of one story is merely the beginning.